U.S. and Russian officials say they'll begin working on a path to end the war in Ukraine. The two sides finished discussions in Saudi Arabia today without Ukraine being invited to the table. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the talks were part of a larger process.
We're not going to pre-negotiate an end to this conflict. These are the kinds of things that have to happen through hard and difficult diplomacy in closed rooms over a period of time. The goal of today's meeting was to follow up on the phone call the president had a week ago and begin to establish those lines of communication.
Let's now head over to West Palm Beach with CBS News Chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordes. Nancy, what are U.S. officials saying about these talks with their Russian counterparts?
Well, they're saying, Lindsay, that they expect that they will be followed up fairly quickly by more talks, including direct conversations between President Trump and Vladimir Putin. They say they want to move quickly. They want to negotiate a lasting end to this conflict that does not involve Russia and Ukraine falling into another dispute in a couple of years. And they said, interestingly, that any negotiated settlement would involve lifting some or all of the massive U.S. sanctions that have been placed on Russia over the past few years after it, in an unprovoked manner, invaded Ukraine and has been fighting for territory there ever since.
Nancy, how different is this policy and this administration's stance compared to the Biden administration's?
Publicly, I'd say it's a 180. I mean, basically what you heard coming from Secretary of State Rubio and the other U.S. officials after 4.5 hours of meetings with the Russians, which, by the way, we haven't seen anything like that since well before Russia invaded Ukraine back in 2022. They said that they want the two nations to work more closely together. They said they want them to be closer diplomatically, closer economically. This is just not the kind of language we have heard from Washington in recent years, when top officials, right up to the former president, Joe Biden, viewed Russia as much more of a foe than a partner. But President Trump has long made it clear that he views Russia quite differently. And even Marco Rubio, who has taken a tougher line against Russia in the past, even he was one of the first to start saying publicly that the only way that this war is truly going to end is with a negotiated settlement. And that's what he now says they are working to achieve pretty quickly, even though there's some frustration, and perhaps even more than frustration, anger on the part of the Ukrainians who were left out of at least this set of talks in Saudi Arabia this week, and the Europeans who are wondering what they're going to be getting for the billions of dollars that they spent defending Ukraine, wondering when they're going to be invited to sit at the table as well.
Certainly. And Nancy, of course, you're following so many threads there in Florida. Here in the U.S., you have new reporting about cuts at the FAA in an effort by the Trump administration to essentially overhaul and shrink the size of government. What can you tell us, and what other cuts are you following?
Yes, one of the challenging things about covering the story, Lindsay, has been that the only way we can really get a sense of how many people are being cut and who they are is either from sources on the inside or from the unions that represent those workers, because we aren't getting a lot of details from the Trump administration, from DOGE, run by Elon Musk, about how large in scope these cuts are and what is to come. Interestingly, last night, the Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, perhaps in response to criticism that these cuts are going to weaken safety and security at the FAA, he posted that out of the 45,000 employees at the FAA, fewer than 400 have been cut. He insisted, by the way, that none of the cuts had to do with safety and security, nothing that would make aviation less safe. But we did interview, Lindsay, a young woman who had just gone to work at the FAA about 2.5 months ago. She was working as an aviation safety assistant at Dallas-Fort Worth, helping to file reports and inspections on the American Airlines fleet. She said that she thought, as a result of what she does, that she and her colleagues would be in the clear when the cuts came. But she was not. She was let go on Friday. Take a listen to what she had to say.
I personally did not feel that our positions were at risk for the simple fact that we are in the Flight Standards Safety Division. It says its name, right? Flight and safety.
one of the frustrating things for her name is Monica, she didn't want us to use her last name, is that when she got her dismissal letter, it cited poor performance as a reason that she was being let go. But she told us she hasn't gotten any performance reviews yet. She's only been on the job for 2.5 months. And what employment lawyers tell us is that this is a rationale that is being used frequently by the Trump administration because it's really the only way that you can let go people who are on probationary status, basically new employees in the federal government. You can't say we decided we don't need you anymore. You can only let them go if there's some kind of misconduct or poor performance involved. And so that's what a lot of these workers are erroneously, in some cases, being told.
Yeah, we're already hearing some of the unions that represent these workers push back on that. Nancy Cordes, thank you.